Hello.
Well, are you in bed with the light turned off?
No, I have this little thing that I can cover my camera, and I forget about it.
Mm.
Sorry.
Are we sorry? It's, it's fine. Have there been any changes for you since we last spoke?
No, we spoke on Wednesday. Wednesday for me,
Mm.
and I'm still I'm still just looking when there are sensations and thoughts about them. To recognize anything, you have to think.
Say that one
So
again.
to recognize anything, you have to think.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, they're just sensations of any kind.
Mm.
And I'm playing with it extensively.
Mm. So are you recognizing the recognizing? Are you thinking about thinking?
Yes, yes.
Are you seeing yourself see things? Looking at yourself looking for things?
I'm not sure. I'm still no, just looking at other things, thoughts as other things, not at me looking for them.
So just seeing.
Yes. And distinguishing sensations from thoughts about sensations.
Yes. That's a big one, that one. Mm.
Yeah. I apologize, I have a helicopter here.
Say again.
I apologize, I have a helicopter here.
Oh, I can't hear it. I think Zoom does a pretty good job of cutting out background noises. When you observe a sensation, it seems fairly obvious that you locate it in space somewhere. You locate it in a give it a position and locate an area and then identify the nature or characteristics of the sensation. But have you ever thought to play with the concept of time in terms of when does a sensation arrive? Does it last continuously for a period? Does it go as soon as you take your attention away from it? Or does it go slowly or however, yeah, what's, have you played with See, it's wrong to say in terms of time, but have you played with the presence of sensation?
No, no,
So
just perceiving it still.
yeah,
Yeah.
have you recognized that when you're fully immersed in the sensation, that you are the sensation, that that's all there is the sense.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
I can only be in one place at a given time. Yeah. Yes.
If you're fully in it, that's it. That's you are it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. This is clear. This is clear.
So what are the ramifications of that? What does that say about surrounding situations? Would it not be the case that that's everything? That is the nature of existence, that you in this instant you're a sensation, in that instant you're a sound, in that instant you're a sight, etc., that you morph from sense organ to sense organ depending on where you're.
Not yet. Not yet. That's why I'm playing with it, to exercise my skill.
Yeah. So as much as it sounds weird, you are what occupies your attention at any moment. That could be other people, that could be a tree or a rock, a dog. If you have sensations, of course, the tactile stimulation means that you are an organism for a moment, a body.
Yes, but only in certain moments, when life goes on around me, then I forget about it. I'm immersed in life, living normally. I have to sit still a bit and decide, okay, now I'm gonna observe my sensations and thoughts that come with them. This is what I say, my skill is weak. I have the impression that there's an intrinsic wish to play with it now
Excellent. Excellent.
at times that suit me the best. I expect, me and expectations in future, I slash them all, but somehow I can say that I expect this to spill over into life at some point when I'm more skilled at it.
Yeah. Oh, well, I would like to. I imagine, and I prefer my story, my imagining, that this is happening for you all the time. These little spills are going on constantly, and one day
But
they'll accumulate enough to be noticed.
they have to reveal themselves to me. They have to be noticed, and I still don't notice this. Once I do, I'll tell you.
Well, maybe what I've said, that's so circling right back to earlier. You can notice and not notice that you notice. So noticing that you notice is probably more important than noticing.
Yeah.
Haven't you ever caught a, a fleeting instant flash of memory that tells you that you saw something or you experienced something in your environment? For me, it's a sight usually, that or something I've seen that I had no reaction to seeing it until the memory turned up, and then the
Oh,
memory
yes, yes,
saw it.
yes. It can be a second later,
Yes, yes.
or it can be much later. But oh, yes, yes, yes. Often, often.
So that tells you that you can be aware of all sorts of things. You can be aware of the coffee table that you don't want to walk into when you
Yeah.
go across the room, but not even know that you're aware, not aware that you're aware, yet
Yes, yes.
you don't bump into the coffee table. You know, your body, your organism knows how to walk around it. So it doesn't require anything from the mind whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're looking very serious, Kate. Can you hear me, Kate? you're you're muted. Can't find the mute button. You got you.
I'm
Yeah.
really, I don't know if you can hear me. I'm on a very flaky um, signal, to be honest.
Right, right. Yes, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I'm far away from anywhere. Um, Thank you so much for last week. It was the first time I'd been to one of these sessions. And although I brushed it away at the time, you sort of asked me, if I'd just basically gone to sleep after having an LU type wake up seeing through. And I said, oh, no, not at all. But actually, I think that you were probably right. I think one of the good things for me about LU was the discipline of having contact with somebody every day, um, which kept me more awake on the case. I don't know whether that's quite the same as seeking at all, but it's something to do with where your attention is going. And this past week, my attention um, has drifted off a lot less. So I'm more curious about how the operating system of life than I was 2 or 3 weeks ago. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you for that. That's great. I love it. Yes. Yeah.
And thank you for everybody for sort of kicking in,
Yes.
because somehow you realize that when you give some sort of instruction or suggestion, that you show an interest in that you're showing an interest in feelings which are in some way more real than thoughts, for example. That's only partly true, because the feelings are also have all sorts of layers and depths, which are obviously something to do with the story so far of my life, and actually of lots of other people's lives, and lots of so thank you. I just feel back on the case.
Good. Good stuff. Yeah. So is there any anything prominent that you're looking at the moment? I'm not saying
Well,
you
I'm
should.
trying to look at the strong suggestion. I'm trying to look at the strong suggestion that it's fantasy to think that we um, are driving anything at all.
Oh, okay. Yep. That's big.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're both probably breaking up a bit.
Mm.
But the question, I suppose, that's popped up is that you've also put up this word intention, and I don't know whether that's intention is just a word which we use to just say what's happening is a product of previous experience, or at least largely partly a product of previous experience, rather than saying intention is a direction.
Mm. So when you examine that kind of thing, when you look at a word like intention and how that translates into actual experience. Obviously, there's a mental component that kind of narrates what is intended, but there's also a feeling that goes along with that, isn't there? That feeling that encompasses a lot of things. Like for a start, the implication is that there is something to achieve, something to do, the intention to do it. So there is that thing. Then there is the idea that it's possible. Otherwise, if it was impossible, there probably would be no intention for it. So intention implies that that there is something to do and it can be done. I have control. We may even cross the delusion of choice and think that we can choose either to do or not do it. Have we asked, where did this intention come from? Was it summoned? Was it outlined before it arrived? Did it turn up fully formed? Was it triggered by something?
Well, my sort of observation so far would be that not exactly necessarily any of those, but I suppose what intention is sort of crystallizing out as you say, maybe it's the same, as some sort of, it's got some sort of direction to it.
Yes.
But I don't know whether the direction is just the, you know, the way the sort of click click of the brain operates to just optimize something, or whether that is, I don't think there necessarily has to be any willfulness in it, or even selfness in it. So the question is whether intention is just a word for, well, that's what's going to happen.
Well, that's what I want to happen, would be more literal, would it not? If I intend to do something, I can easily presume that it's not because I don't want to do it, although that's also possible, but generally speaking, it would be because I do want something. And it's a straight line between you and that something that gives it a sense of direction, I imagine.
And what would be the word for something happened? You know, something which was distilled, you know, which was a property of, I don't know, this, you know, my habits, I suppose, and the habits of other people that have contributed to my habits, that, you know, that sort of direction. Doesn't that have some sort of optimizing about it just of itself?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean. Can you say that another way?
Okay,
Maybe
so if we're describing,
what if we just let me interrupt for a moment? What if we said that the ultimate foundation of intention is that there has to be a self there to do it?
okay, so I'm trying to debunk that in my head. I'm wondering if there's a word for some sort of direction of travel.
Yeah, I get what you're
Not
saying. I get
necessarily,
a sense of movement.
which doesn't necessarily just have the self as the center of it. There is some sort of direction of travel.
Yes. So
So
I,
would you say for yourself that you don't have intention? It's, you know, how do things happen
I have
and
no
not other
idea
things
how
happen?
they happen. Like I've given up trying to work out how things happen, and I can
Okay.
create stories about them. That's true.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
get that a happening can occur, and although there may well be conditions that lead to that happening, in most cases it's just a waste of energy for me to seek them out and try and itemize them, so to speak.
Mm.
So a happening is a
Mm.
happening is a happening. It just happens, and I'm not concerned about. And if it seems like I did it, it's just the story that comes along afterwards. Yet intentions turn up and things happen, and sometimes they align with those intentions, and sometimes they don't.
Mm.
But I just use the word intention for a happening that involves a fantasy about a doing of some kind, a fantasy about a fantasy of doing.
Okay. So that's what we call an intention.
Yeah, an intention. Well, it seems like it's clear. It's clear that everybody knows what an intention is. I am going to is usually the beginning of an intention, isn't it? But
Well,
what it
only
says, sorry,
What
go
is
on.
a happening made of? What is a happening made of?
well, the happening is a story with me at in the middle, I suppose. You're right. Yeah. So if anything's happening, it's vis-a-vis me. Yeah, you're right. So it's just another story. Yeah. And yet you can sort of feel that something's happening without the post hoc thought that something's happening. Or am I wrong?
How do you feel that? How does that feel like?
Well, just now, because I'm in one, in a happening, it feels different from a casual happening. Um, it's got some sort of potential, I suppose. It's got some sort of, yeah, it's on a thread somewhere.
A thread implies continuity, no?
Yeah. But because it's got so many complex inputs, I suppose I don't have the instinct to put, self, if you like, at the middle of it, because it's just too, it's not just self. You know, there's a whole web of happening. Sorry to be so inarticulate.
So you could say that everything that you think is happening is made of the self, or is the very construct of self.
Or contingent on self. Is that what we're saying? It's,
Well,
yeah,
the story you saw earlier when I asked you what a happening is made of, that story is the self.
so that's a sort of point of access, point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is unique. And yet, yeah, incredibly contingent.
Only because this seeming need to continue, to understand, to give meaning, to interpret.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. And that's a habit. It's a property of the
Well,
story
you
so
can
far of
say
my life.
yeah, but you can say the need, the mechanism of the need to continue, even though you see it, is deeply tied to the
Mm.
fear of uncertainty, of
Yeah.
unknowingness of what this is, what comes
Mm.
next.
Mm. Well, I'm sorry to say I buy that. I think that's true. So is that sort of, I mean, you can use words like seeking and curiosity and all that. Is that completely wasted? Is that working? Yeah, is that wasted? Because I'm congenitally curious, I think. I'm congenitally skeptical.
Well, I think,
It's really, and so I have a belief. Sorry.
yeah, it just seems that that needs to happen until you stop, until it doesn't need to happen.
Okay. Hmm.
Do you see the identification in a statement like that? I am congenitally
Mhm.
curious. That
Mhm.
is that right?
Mhm.
Would it, if I said to you something that sounds a little bit weird, if I said to you, say that again differently, say that curiosity is frequently here.
Mhm.
Does that seem more accurate than I am congenitally curious? Or is there a distinct
I
wanting
think
to keep a hold of I am bit?
Yeah, I'm completely happy with curiosity is happening.
Yes, good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So there's when you say it like that, like the breeze is moving the leaves of the tree. Curiosity is happening sounds a bit the same. You get what I mean? That there's no
yep,
pull or push
yep,
from a person. It's just a
yep,
description of what's going on. Yeah.
yep, yep. Um, the curiosity is sort of on automatic pilot. There's no, there doesn't have to be a self that's being curious. I mean, it's not,
Mhm.
it's orthogonal to that. It's not part, it's not necessarily part of the deal.
Yeah. It's possible that it might turn up sometimes as a convenient distraction, but it's not to say that that's
Yeah,
the only way it turns up, or even if it does turn up like that. It could, though, because you're prone to that. It could be a very convenient distraction from whatever's going on for you. But
yeah,
maybe not. Who knows? Yeah.
yeah.
So when curiosity turns up, it'd be great if another thought turned up to consider what's behind it, what triggered it, what's going on at the moment. And by all means, enjoy your curiosity. It's a wonderful thing. I love it. Mm.
Mm.
It's a tricky one to get to be looking is a trick. A lot of people, when they say, oh, I look, what they do is that they've got this mental process that they go through, and it is a mental process. But looking really is more a case of becoming aware of
Yeah.
physical things that are going on.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
And yet a lot of curiosity is done with the mind.
Yeah.
Again, if it's done with the mind, your relationship to it is just like the breeze, then it's
Mm.
not identifying as such.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
But look underneath and see if it's requires, if there's an implication that there is a self doing it. It's a feeling
Mm.
thing that will reveal that to you.
Mm. But whenever I look at the feelings, it's they evoke other feelings. They feelings have got stories too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They've got connections.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is never a self doing it, by the way. Or you can say, I mean, the selfing is believing that you're doing it, is having a problem
Yeah.
with it, watching it, analyzing it.
Mm. Mm.
There is no self.
Which means if there's identification there, it's a hook onto a fantasy. the hook is real, and the connection is real, but the fantasy isn't.
Yeah. And then everything goes down the tube. The feelings and the happenings and the self, they all have that same property of not being there.
Say more about that. Am I hearing you right?
In the same way as that there is no self, no happening which relates to the self, no feelings which relate to the self. There is, they all go down the tubes together. They just are all part of the same framework, fantasy of things being, of stuffness, of thingness.
So just checking if I'm hearing you right. Am I hearing you say that there's a recognition that a whole lot of stuff that you took to be actual turns out to be conceptual?
Well, my reading of where I am is that I did have a whoosh of self not being here, of being a fantasy, a useful nonsense. But somehow, which was something I could see intellectually way before I had any felt sense of it. But I suppose none of the other things have quite fallen in the same way, because I think intellectually they are in the same category, and I haven't.
Yep, I get it.
Noticed that.
Mm.
What does no self feel like? You said you had a felt sense of it.
Well, I'm rewinding a few months and on the back of some LU instructions. I'd say there was a physical aha. There was some sort of physical aha which I hung on to for a while.
So if that was an experience and you expect that to be how you feel all the time, and it isn't, then you're going to chase something forever, aren't you?
Yeah.
It can be a big relief to sort of see that there is no self. But that is an experience passing as all other experience.
I mean, it did seem difficult. It seemed hard to explain at the time, but in the aftermath, things were the same but different. But they were different, and yet I'm not sure if I hadn't been sort of plugging away at the self exercises, as it were, that I would have been able to account for what was different. I wouldn't have been able to. If it had just happened out of the blue, I'm not sure what story I would have told. And I might not have used the self word.
What is common that happens is that when we start to lose this relief or whatever we want to call it in that honeymoon period, we start to doubt again, or the self creeps back in with all these kind of questions and let's say tied to the expectation of this, needing to be what it was and it's not anymore. And then the mind starts to become active again and starts to grasp onto more questions, more seeking. And then you're off to the races again.
Yeah.
You haven't lost anything, and just see the mind for what it's doing.
I had an epiphany
Yeah.
about almost 15 years ago. It was great. I think it hung around for about a day and a half. And I have never experienced that again in all this time. I feel envious when I hear of people having those experiences, because I can remember that it was indescribable, the experience of that time. I have no idea if it means anything, whether it came, stayed, or went, which it did all of those. I have no idea what it means. I think people have those kind of experiences all the time and put it down to whatever convenient explanation turns up at the time. But they're no different to an experience of walking down the street, really, in the sense that they're just an experience. It's certainly an unusual experience, that's true. But that's all. They're just, and all experiences have to end. They change. So yeah. But there's been a residue, and maybe that got fairly thin for you. I don't know but I've coasted along on that residue ever since. It's just lovely. And now that you're here and you can talk about it, well, you can ride that residue too.
Right.
But there's always more. Always. Doesn't mean it's important to find it and do anything with it. It's just there or not there. Doesn't matter.
What can be helpful is to notice when or what makes it, what makes the belief in the self be activated again. So what happens when you when you think you're a self again? Usually tied around fear at some level, something you're protecting, perhaps.
I have characterized the self in the past, and speculation, but I've characterized the self as body armor, as a protection from something. And so when we get triggered into identification, the belief that there's a self there, it's telling us something. It's telling us that we're protecting against something. We don't know what. Because up until we started this stuff, it was probably fairly successful in diverting us away from whatever was uncomfortable. So now when we get triggered, doesn't mean that we're not awake. It just means that our instinct for protection has been activated. So it's a good clue, that's all. And we're not going to find it by reasoning. We're not going to find it by going to the mind.
You can find it in
I
everyday
believe that.
life where you feel like you're not moving freely, where you're behaving differently than you naturally feel like, if you're adjusting your behavior, perhaps, if you're doing something you don't want to do out of some belief that you have to or should do. Those are often tied to fear of something. You can't be free, liberated, if you don't feel free and liberated in life. We can get so caught up in there is no self, the concept. So we just make this whole thing out of that. That's the main focus. But we close ourselves off in life, not moving freely. And whatever we're protecting there is the self.
Well, I'm an old lady and I've been doing this for almost 75 years. Just, being pinged about by people. It's true. Yeah. By circumstances. And actually, that I do feel freer being old. It was a good time for me.
Mm. Yes, it's an old saying, but it's a good saying. The only way I would want to be young again at any age, younger than I am now, would be if I could take what I know now with me.
Yeah.
So you know how you said everything was the same, but it was different. But it was like a little bit tricky about what was different. You couldn't really say what was different, could you? yet you know it was
I
different.
couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
That
And I'm certain, yeah, I couldn't.
that difference is also a portal. That is a way of looking at things. You know, it's
Mm.
like being able to see around the corner kind of thing. You can see the quality of things that you're looking at differently to the way you used to. You know, and then you realize that what you used to do, what most people do, is that an image gets stimulated by whatever they look at, and they then relate to that image of things, so that they're not having an experience of what is actually there most of the time. Now that's fine in a lot of cases, but it's the ability to be able to do that. That difference that you talked about was a way of looking at things to see what was actually there, instead of looking at the image that your brain created about what it thinks is there.
Mm.
And
I think that rings a bell. There was a lot of sort of it was funny. It was there was a lot of feeling like, you know, as though your sort of bullshit detectors were firing a lot.
yes,
So I like, yeah,
yeah, because they get triggered
so,
a lot, don't they? I mean, you know, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Mm.
What we're
Mm.
told the world consists of turns out to be not even Walt Disney level fantasy.
Mm.
The reality is
Mm.
something altogether different.
Mm.
Yet that is a reality as well, that fantasy land. So we have to walk, you know, one foot in either side, you know, in a way. We still have to cope with most of the world seeing it like that.
There isn't one fantasy land. There's 8 billion fantasy lands. Or I could say even more than that,
Yeah,
because we all have different, like
multiples.
those the
Yeah.
context that we're kind of I was thinking back before when I used to be in corporate the corporate life, and the context, the reality bubble you know we live in under that context versus the context if you're kind of going into, if you're something else, or you change occupation, or you change who you're with. Like we keep switching the reality bubble all the time.
Mm. Yeah, life is like that picture that Anand has got there, you know, that psychedelic.
Mm.
Yeah. How about you, John? What's happening for you?
Um, I had an interesting experience just late this afternoon. I went to a public a public gathering, I guess, and I saw a person who I used to be very much involved with. Yeah, it was just interesting seeing what was, you know, arising from that. Strong feelings. And I guess what I observed was even though those feelings were uncomfortable, there was something in me that was drawn to them. Yeah. And also just driving back, I decided not to stay there very long. Just driving back and going back to the body and the sensations in the body. And alternating between the mind wanting to make a story about it, trying to understand it, and just going back to the sensations in the body, breaking up. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on. Yeah. So yeah, just and going back to it. Just watching the mind going back to it, wanting to go back to it. Going back into.
Yeah. So how did you feel about that the mind was wanting to go back into it? Was it interesting, or was there resistance about that, or did you have an opinion about it?
Well, I think I thought in the past I'm familiar with it, and I thought, oh, that's me going into trying to make meaning out of life, meaning out of these experiences. But I think I just just felt it was what you refer to the glue that is you, that sort of sticky stuff. Yeah, so just felt it was like
So you could feel a self being created, or at least the illusion of a self being created with that
very strong feeling. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. There was a me in all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what happened to that me when you noticed that there was that there? Did that change it?
Well, as soon as I if I stayed with the body and the sensation, the me, went very much into the background.
Hmm. And did you find that was what happened most of the time, or did you find yourself getting lost in it?
A bit of both, going in between. Yeah.
Hmm. And when you got lost in it, did you notice that it always came to an end? That at some point you would notice that that was the case?
Yeah, right. Or I get distracted with something else. Yeah.
Yeah, get
Yeah.
moved to another one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's good stuff. Yeah. You could say that just simply noticing how we make something out of nothing, we create a self as something from nothing more substantial than a story. And then we have this real experience of that connection, that glue.
Yeah.
It's an amazing process, absolutely amazing. Do you meditate much these days, Kate?
Say that foot, should I?
No, I'm not. I have no opinion about should or shouldn't meditate. I just, when I saw your cushions, I thought, yeah, and the way you're sitting on the ground, I thought, yeah, maybe you meditate.
No, I've got cushions and I do sometimes meditate, but I actually just came myself in.
No,
So you tell me about meditation. What's for sale?
oh, well, I mean, interesting, isn't it? You say that one word meditation and it can point to about 1,000 different forms or whatever of that, Yeah, no, I enjoy meditating, but I can't remember when I last meditated in a formal sense, sat down with the intention of, there's that word again, of doing that. But I do find myself frequently in a meditative state. So I recognize there's a certain feeling that comes along with being in a light hypnotic state or a meditative state. And I find myself experiencing that very often sitting here when there's silence, that will come on. I get that feeling. When there was silence a moment ago, how was it for you? What was happening for you when there was just silence?
So I to myself, oh, this is a to move near an electric plug. Discomforted by silence. I don't run away from what you're fishing for. I'm not sure. Just in the presence of people, which sort of are several people. I like. Has different, doesn't it? In context.
You know, I don't know if you can hear me without breaking up, but you broke up so much I couldn't understand a word you said, but I got what you were saying. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Could we go back to what you were saying about fear and armor? I don't know if you can hear me, but I can guess. I guess I can feel a sense of armor, but actually, the sense of fear is very unfamiliar. I don't have feeling I readily point to fear. So if the if you like instruction, the guidance giving around the word fear I mean, I can see that fear is useful as a store of uncertainty, but I'm not really very familiar with it as a strong sense.
Yeah. So that could either be that there is no fear, or that you're very good at distracting yourself from it. In both cases, it could be, in either case, it could be true, or maybe other things I haven't thought of. What about if instead of thinking about the word fear, what if you just thought about discomfort, feeling unpleasant feelings in the body?
Maybe an easy like pain. I with fear, it's a sort of matter of fact, which fear is I don't know, a story. It's quite sad. It's a story. It's a label on a, I don't know what it is, because it's a label feeling. I'm not sure I know what it feels like.
Can you
And so
get up?
there's an instruction associated.
No, I was just asking, can you get up right now and dance around like a crazy person in front of the camera?
Difficult. You're right. We're calling it fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a comfort. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It would hurt. Yeah. Right. So tricky, aren't they?
Yeah, so there would be we can, these are only words. We use words like there would be resistance to doing that, right? But if you look
Yeah.
at your body
Yeah.
and we look past the word fear or discomfort or resistance and all of that stuff, in the body there would be a contraction of some kind. Somewhere you would feel a resistance to doing that. And it would be a feeling. The thoughts about it just turn up later, but there would be that feeling of whatever, do sentences
Yeah.
turn up that says, what will I look like? Or I can't do it, or
Mm.
just think of walking down the main street of your town naked. Just think of that. You don't even have to even go anywhere near doing it. Just think of it as an actual thing, and you will excite a certain kind of sensation, a contraction, a resistance to actually doing it.
So it's a freedom that Marius was talking about, a freedom in that domain and dimension, spectacular freedom. Yeah. Wow.
So in those moments, it's good to just ask, what are you protecting?
What comes up, I, you know, I couldn't possibly deny that I wasn't protecting my, but I would also notice that I was protecting, the way things happen around here, of how society operates, human beings operate, how
Various
how stuff
images,
happens.
perhaps.
Well, yes, no, it's just not what happens in the framework, yeah, sort of, which are colluding. well, insofar as there's an I alluding with, yeah. So these are,
Yeah, so there is a self-image and there is an image of how things are done or not done around there. And that image
yeah,
only exists in your mind. You imagine that everybody
well, I can only,
agrees on the same thing, but
that's what I was going to say. But, yeah. And the strong feeling, and that everybody, what happens, yeah,
you're breaking up so much, Kate. I can't understand what you're saying.
really sorry, folks, but I'm,
Yeah,
I'm miles away. Not
we'll put up with it.
signal.
Yeah, we'll just have to repeat. Yeah.
If I street naked, nobody would come if he
I don't
walked
think
in.
it's your connection, by the way. I feel like it's your microphone.
Oh, that is not my strong point. What I'm doing. I tell you, problem is that I'm deaf, so all going straight into my ear, and my audio coming a different way. Is that
Mm.
really better? Like an old lady who's not very techy, claiming that.
Are we breaking up for you as well?
It might be better if I didn't speak on.
You can try just turning your video off, and if that works better for just your audio, it may well be that it's a bandwidth issue. But if it doesn't work any
Okay,
better,
is that any better?
well, it seems to be.
Is that any better? Yeah. Okay. I can hear you,
Good.
and I was hearing you well before. Okay,
Mm.
it's a bandwidth issue probably.
So if you imagine that you're not going to walk down the main street of town naked, does that decision happen, not that you're making it, but does that decision happen because it's wrong to do it, because it's against the law to do it? If it is, I don't know if it is, or because it's an ideal that you don't do because it will have consequences that you don't want to face? Or is it
I think the
because
list
it's
is quite long.
Go on.
I think the list is quite long. It's all of the above and the way habit and
What I want to do is divide
and
them into two categories, though. I want to divide them into the category that there is a uh, how to put it? It's you if you're describing reasonable potential real life consequences and you don't do it for that reason, you can imagine that there is no identification involved in that. But if you did it, if you didn't do it because you think it's wrong, or you're responding to a story about what you'll look like or what people will think of you, right? That's purely Fantasyland stuff. Do you get the difference between the two possible reasons? One there's strong identification going on, or I'll look like a fool, or whatever. That's that kind of identification, or I could end up in jail, or something like that. Essentially, you're still responding to a story, but for different reasons. You get what I mean?
Okay.
It's not so much
Yeah.
that you're protecting this imaginary self, but rather that it's
Mm.
yeah. I don't know how to put.
Okay. So yeah. So no, I get the difference. So yeah, if the context were different, I've been kit off running around saunas in Scandinavia, where the context was completely different, or
Yeah,
bathhouses in Japan where you can wander around naked. So and that would be fine. In fact, to not have your kit off running around the street would be, not the way it's done around here. So I would
yeah.
have to admit that it was something to do with, I don't want people to think I'm mental,
Mm,
sort of, no, it would be protecting a notion of myself. Yeah. I don't think it's
yeah.
wrong. It's not intrinsically wrong.
Well, no, there's no right or wrong, is there? It's yeah.
That story feels secondary though, because there is just the
Yeah.
resistance probably first, and then we might like the why
Mm.
I mentioned that is that now we're kind of sitting and constructing a possible scenario which wouldn't really be happening as it was happening. Like if you were really to do this,
Mm.
your
Mm.
experience would likely be just feeling a lot of resistance. And then
Mm.
the question can be, okay, why resistance? Um, and I I would say it's likely connected to not being accepted in a way. Not it's a kind of a survival mechanism. So the tribe will think you're different. They won't accept you.
Mm.
But if you look at that closely, it's not really, it doesn't really make sense. Or at least it doesn't make sense to me. Um,
So what doesn't make sense? Would you say there are no unwritten rules of the tribe, or that the unwritten rules of the tribe don't make sense?
um,
Or is there no tribe?
there probably are unwritten rules of the tribe, but I guess what doesn't make sense anymore is,
Blindly adhering to them.
yeah, like, yeah, how can I say that? It's if it's obvious to you that mm, this is not something that Yeah, how can I say that? Can't really find a good way to explain why I don't feel it necessary to fit in at the cost of my freedom, so to speak.
You've got to tell us about your freedom now.
Yeah. Who gave it to you?
Well, you know, this is it's really interesting once we zoom into it, because it's like um, at some point in at some point here, the restrictedness feels more unbearable than the pain of not fitting in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I don't know why and how that happens, to be honest. That's why I'm having a hard time explaining what I mean. Um, that's an interesting one. I have to look at that.
Yeah, it is interesting. Would you say that you actually still feel um, the inclination for restriction imposed by social norms?
Yeah, a contraction can happen, definitely. But there is at the same time this um, process of looking directly at, kind of like facing the fear almost. Like I don't, this feels constrictive, so I need to, what is protected here? And it, it's nothing. Nothing is protected here. It's just a sensation with a story, or just a sensation. It's just the contractive nature of it, which is probably a response from my nervous system from an old belief tied to a me.
So it doesn't feel like survival for you, whereas for me, with with a strong sense of self for me, then it does feel like survival.
Hmm.
So you feel like your survival is threatened if you transgress some of the social rules, do you?
Sure.
Hmm.
Or is that an interpretation on top of a strong contraction?
Maybe.
Perhaps that's what I'm finding difficult to explain. It's just a process of seeing that enough, almost, that it's, um, you're just left with the contraction or the sensation. And because it's just a contraction and sensation, it's not survival anymore. It's just there. It's just what's happening.
Yeah.
I've noticed something. I had a thought today actually about how a lot of this stuff that we're exploring is kind of it's weird way of not making sense anymore here, which made perfect sense before. I could explain things and kind of lay it out. Whereas now, sometimes I have a hard time explaining how how it works, because maybe because I know that whatever I explain is not going to be accurate. Anyways, it doesn't really make sense. I don't know. Because survival, what is survival? Who is surviving what?
I mean, in the old mythology, if you break society's rules, then you get sent to Coventry. You get put in isolation. You get ejected from the tribe. And that's supposed to be the worst punishment that can be. In fact, frequently they described it as being the end of physical survival as well, because we need cooperation in order to survive.
Well, I think it's, and I might be wrong, but I think it's more about the self needing mirrors to exist. And when you don't have other people continuously mirroring you, that feels like death. It feels like you know, you, the meaning and the purpose and the all the stuff that you kind of project onto others, you can't anymore, and people are not mirroring back who you think you are.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, I agree. And it's it's only when you come to a group like this that you can go, well, it's okay not to have a self. Without this, not having a self is the end of survival. You know, you need it. Yeah. That's interesting, isn't it?
I'm actually writing a chapter on this I'm writing a book lately, and this mirroring thing is it's very interesting.
Hmm. But you know, John, you know there's no self. You've had those experiences of recognizing no self, haven't you?
Yeah.
You know, during some of your um, retreats, you've experienced it.
Well, yeah. More recently, they were that they sort of come unbidden.
Yep.
Quite often, late in the day when I'm tired, or driving in the car, or
Yep.
they're not. I haven't set anything up. But just going back to the sort of survival thing, I mean, I think you raised it, Vince, with like, I mean, I mightn't take my clothes off and run down the street because they might lock me up. That's quite a real possibility. I don't think that's, but I think what my sense of what Maris is talking about is a much more globalized, generalized sense of prohibition around stuff, because I'm not protecting, myself from incarceration. I'm protecting an idea, really, aren't I? I'm protecting
An image.
an image, yeah. Yeah.
But because how do you reconcile that you've had moments of seeing that there isn't a self, and then you find yourself reacting as if there were a self to be protected? How do you reconcile those two things? Do you reconcile them? Maybe you don't.
No, well, I find it very difficult. That's why I'm here. You
Mm.
know, I think when we had a chat, I was saying that yes, I have seen. I don't even, having no self doesn't quite fit.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, because I'm just there is just here, and a self or no self. I don't know. Just they seem a bit awkward, or I don't know. I can't explain it. And they're not very long. They're not. You know, people describe other experiences which are much longer. Mine are very fleeting. But yes, I can't deny them, and yet, as I said, my own personal circumstances can sometimes press in very close, and I feel a self that is aggrieved and suffering and all that kind of stuff.
Well, wait a minute. Stop here. Now this, I beg to differ. You can't see a self that's aggrieved. You experience these contractions and these sensations that you call aggrieved, and you come to some logical conclusion that must mean that there's a self, or at least an
I'm questioning
adhesion.
it, Vince, but there are a lot of contractions around something.
Yeah, well, there you go. Now that's a good description. There are contractions around something. Something triggers contractions. Right. I get that. I can go along with that 100%. But when you say there's a self that feels aggrieved, that's just a story. That's not even a good description of what happens, is it? Is it?
I think, John, do you mean that when there is a contraction, there is a belief in the narration that is going on? So you suddenly believe that you are the thoughts again?
Well, particularly around strong feeling, thoughts and feelings, they're never very far apart. But yeah, strong feelings, and then there's usually a narration around that. Yeah, yeah. There's usually a narration around strong contraction. Yeah, that things shouldn't be a particular way, or anyway, the storylines are endless.
But I can hear that, and I can hear those stories. I still don't see any evidence of a self that you're talking about. Are they just words? Is that just another story that you've thought up to describe it? But it's not really very accurate, is it? What's the connection between having a strong reaction to something and a self? Is there anything other than thought, that connection?
I suppose there's some sort of sense of continuity.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas, the times of, for lack of a better word, no self, there doesn't seem to be much continuity. I mean, anyway, well, I don't know. I'm getting a bit lost in words here. But yeah, I mean,
There's a different experience.
absolutely. Well, that's all I can just say. It feels like I inhabit almost two worlds. And I that's where I'm at. I flip-flop between
Yep.
two, and yeah.
I think very often we, seeing that there is no self is one thing from my perspective, and dropping the belief in the self is another thing.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the two worlds you're talking about, I think it often happens that when things are all right, peaceful, calm, nothing uncomfortable happening, it's easy to kind of feel into there being no self. But as soon as something is happening that is uncomfortable, there is a reflex of wanting it to be different and believing it could be different. And so I think that's where to look. That that mechanism of, okay, something uncomfortable is happening, and the thoughts firing up about, I want to change this, I want to get away from this, I don't want this. And in that moment, recognize that it's just a habitual reaction from the mind, and that it can't be different. It's happening. What's happening is happening. So no matter
Yeah.
what we hope or want it to be different, right now it's happening. So seeing that the mind is just creating these stories, scenarios to distract and kind of mentally get away from the actual experience, we can just stay with the experience. And doing that, um, might make it less sticky.
Well, I think that's when I'm able to remind myself of what you two gentlemen talk about, and go back to the body and try and stay with not so much the story, the narration, but the feeling. Then yeah, it does prove less sticky. That's for sure.
And I would like to reframe what you said about when you can remind yourself. I would like you to see a more accurate way, not that you need to talk like it normally, but for the moment, a more accurate way would be to say when reminding happens, when a thought turns up, right?
Yep.
Not,
Yep.
not a
That's
case
right.
of success or failure that you've managed to remind yourself.
Yep.
I also want to add to what I said that notice whatever is not, or whatever you don't want to happen, notice the story or the interpretation of what is happening versus what is actually happening. Because it's what's happening is not the context of your mind and the story that is playing. What is happening is sensations and movement and visual, whatever, what's
Yeah.
going on in the sense fields. That's what you're saying about going back to the body, but my point is just notice that what, don't necessarily escape the mind by going back to the body, notice the story making, the context meaning creation, so you can kind of feel into that also,
Yeah,
get familiar with that.
yeah, because the going back to the body can be a kind of an escape from. It's a subtle way of trying to change things again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you notice your narration about what's happening, one of the big ones is making meaning, stories that give meaning to things. But if you notice that your narration and you notice that it's a description of an experience, then I would say good. Whereas if it's a story about what it means, then you're heading down the wrong path, so to speak.
Why isn't a description good?
Now, a description is good. It's just a
Why?
description. Because you're not giving meaning to something. You're not creating something on top of the actual event. You're still relating to the event as it is. I mean, the narration will probably turn up unbidden. It'll just be automatic, that narration. And if you just notice the flavor of your narration, you'll know whether or not you're relating to what is actually there, or whether you're relating to meaning that you've applied to what is there, whether you're relating to an image that you've created about what is there, not what is actually there.
But either the narration of a story about it or a description of what's going on will happen or not, is not
Oh, yeah, sure.
something.
Yeah.
So it's just a noticing of what's happening. I
Yeah.
mean,
Hmm.
there's no you choosing to either narrate or describe.
No. But I'm saying if narration is happening and the idea turns up to notice the flavor of the narration, it'll reveal something for you. And it will reveal whether you're creating an image to relate to, or whether you're relating to something actual. So I'm
Yeah,
not.
the narration will usually points to some kind of underlying belief, about,
Yeah.
who I am or how I relate to others. Yeah.
Well, either you believe in the narration or you don't. You cut it off there.
There's not going to be narration there that you don't believe in, is there?
Well, I think now, with recently joining these groups, I'm questioning the narration. I think that's about as much as I could say I'm doing. So I could see the narration happening, and then a questioning sometimes arises and saying, yeah, anyway, just questions that narration, the truth of it, the validity of it.
Yeah, so my point was, so to cut it off there rather than to continue the narration with hunting for beliefs, so to speak, you can see the narration for what it is. You can cut it off there.
A narration. Because looking for beliefs is just another attempt to understand.
Yeah. Who is looking for beliefs?
So are you saying, Marius, if narration happens and you notice that narration is happening,
Mhm.
then narration can stop?
Yeah. Or not.
Yeah.
But
So
when you notice it, you don't, either you believe it or you don't, so to speak. Either the narration is believed in or it's not. Either it stops or it doesn't.
yeah, so in other words, there can be narration that you believe in. When you notice that there is narration, that
Then it
belief
stops.
came.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in other words, all narration is bullshit.
Mhm.
Why do we need a story about what's happening? Can there just be a happening with no story? Yes. I want you to say yes.
But this is very fundamental. Um, this belief that we need stories or need narration or need interpretation of what is going on in life. And the absence of that or not playing along with that can feel really uncomfortable at first. So we just continue. Without narration or without the constant meaning making, a lot of people, and I just say a lot of people because I don't know really how many, but I assume everyone, to be honest, go through a period of emptiness or the void or whatever you want to call it, because you're not filling experience with meaning all the time.
It feels like a kind of an abandonment, that you're
Yeah,
abandoning your life or something.
Yeah. So that's a big thing. That's a big thing. I'm hearing Marius say the way the what when we have an experience, there is the raw experience, and then there is added to it meaning. And that's unnecessary. That corrupts. That gets in the road of, that's where suffering exists.
that is the dream. And I want to add that that is the dream isn't bad. The dream is just a dream. It's not wrong. It's not, but it seems, at least here, it it seemed like a threshold to be able to believe in the dream anymore and not. And that there is a resistance there. Because there are a lot of implications if you cross that threshold. And the seeking mind can hear that and say, I want it anyways. Or, you know, it's like it can be a mix of fear, but also that sounds, that's it. That's the end. You know, I want that. But truly, it's truly not something I recommend to anyone, but I also don't not recommend it to anyone. But it's truly not, you know, the dream is where the fun happens. When you sever that, there's a lot of sameness.
But it's fresh sameness.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I'm not recommending, and I'm also not recommending. And that will happen. Like this is something you're not in control of this. Nobody's in control of that happening or not. Here it just was a continuation of severing beliefs until it was
Yep.
done. Or not done in a completed sense, but over the threshold, so to speak.
Mm. That's another huge one. That's another portal. You know, you can't do anything. You know, what are you doing here? What do you come to these groups for? You can't do anything.
But this is part of life's movement
That's
that
right.
you're here.
That happens. Yeah. So if you can just get that you're absolutely in a corner and you can't do anything, just relax and enjoy the ride. That's just get that and you're home and hosed. No worries. You're muted, Kate.
Sorry, you guys are so analytically fluent, as though that was, you know, it's seductive that you know, this is the way it's built or not built. Amazing. It's hilarious, really.
it's it's so obviously ordinary that I just can't believe everybody hasn't got it. It's just crazy. I just don't understand that.
You know how to identify people in this space? You just you look for the people with the long stares, the distant stares.
So it's not analytical, Kate, at all. It might appear that way, but it's just describing experience. It's all I can do, all we can do is respond according to our experience.
But then you're having to meet us where we are.
Yeah, but I have no idea where
And
you
that's where the,
are. Yeah.
no, but we're in a world where, well, I am, where a sort of analytical description seems helpful.
Mm. Well, I guess it is analytical in that one of the points that I keep pushing at is that what we're doing is just getting more intimate with life, getting closer to the details of what's going on, looking at what is actual rather than what is conceptual, what is an ideal. And that closeness and that detail probably appears analytical, but it's not really. It is just descriptive.
Mm.
Analytical is like talking about reasons, I guess.
Well, yes, it's also a sort of slightly forensic
Yeah, yeah. Well,
attitude.
we are breaking it up though, like that. Yeah, it is a bit of a forensic kind of look at. Yeah, but you can see what they do. You know, they just burrow down to more and more detail.
Mm. Mm.
So probably forensics an excellent word to describe what we do. But it's also paradoxical. It gets to the point where I have no idea. I can't describe my experience accurately. I really don't know what it is to say. I can't say what it is. You know, that what I experience, I can't even describe at that level. You know, at that intense detail level. It's just too complex. And here's a line that I read that Jiddu Krishnamurti used to say, and it really resonates for me. You know, the difference between being awake and not being awake seems to me that I don't mind what happens, whatever it is. I don't mind. I react to it, of course, but it is what it is. And people who are not awake spend a lot of time minding about what happens.
Mm.
They want it to be different. Which just seems absolutely crazy.
Can also be interesting to see how we take something that happens and put it in the story of me. So what happens, which isn't even about me, we make it about me. We make it personal.
Mm.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. and I can attest to I don't know how to put it, a recognition that what happens to this organism, what happens in this organism, is no different to what happens in the weather. You know, what happens in the world out there. So, and the analogy that I just love is I walk out the door and I feel the breeze on my cheek. So there is this sensation that I imagine is put there by moving air, but I don't even think about moving air. I don't even think about the breeze, although I might imagine the breeze, but there is this sensation that is the result of conditions. And what goes on inside this organism, whether it be thought or sensations, is no different to being touched on the cheek by the breeze when I walk outside. It objectifies everything, inside and outside. So there's this kind of feeling of like I'm just privy to this point of origin or whatever you want to call it, that I can imagine that that's what this organism is. It's just a point of origin of becoming aware of objective happenings, whether it be inside or outside. So thoughts turn up, they're just an objective happening, no matter what they're about. Whether it rains or doesn't rain, it's just an objective happening. You know, I can look at the weather forecast and make a connection there, but whether there's rain falling out of the sky or water falling out of the sky and I call it rain or what, it's just another happening. Whether I think it's good or not, it's just another happening. And I can think it's good and I can feel good, but that's just another happening. Or I can think it's not good and I can feel bad, and it's just another happening. I had yeah, so I don't know, I shouldn't go here maybe. How about this for an image? I had a colonoscopy yesterday. And if you know anything about having a colonoscopy, you've got to take this prep before you.
Our prep.
Yeah. So that you're clean inside for when they stick a thing up your bum and have a look at what's going on there. And you know, God, I ran for the toilet and didn't make it. What an image! It's just another happening. Why would I feel bad about it? Well, I didn't feel bad about it. It was rather amusing, actually, but watery shit running down the back of my legs, just another happening. Yeah. But when I say just another happening, I'm not meaning to denigrate it. I'm not meaning to reduce it to something little. I'm just saying I'm objectifying it. It's like, you know, these things happen and there's nothing personal in anything unless we make it that way, and we can only make it that way with a story.
What Marius was saying before, I mean, about things happen and we make it personal. It's particularly when other people are involved. And usually, I mean, it's amazing, even something, you know, happening another driver on the highway can be, and yet there is something, and that's not to talk about closer in our personal circle, then there is that element that goes straight to personal.
Yeah, yeah. We've been trained that way, well and truly trained that way right from the beginning.
Well, in this exploration we do, we are often very focused on a no self here. Rarely do I hear people exploring no self there. And the images that we project onto people, sons, daughters, mothers, colleagues, fathers,
Roles,
whatever.
yeah.
And, it can be helpful to, in those situations where you do feel something around others, to question if there is somebody there too, to kind of see them for not the image that you habitually see them as, or the roles, but the bundle of conditioning that they are.
Yeah, rather than a person with intention, as Kate was, starting off with. Yeah. No, I find that quite a helpful notion to come back to at times.
They're all characters in the play or the game or whatever analogy you want to use. There's nobody there.
So when there is a feeling that it's personal, it's telling us that we're off in fantasy land. It's telling us that we're relating to a concept the moment we feel that it's personal.
Well, in one way, you are always relating to a concept, or you're not relating to the actual other. You are relating to the projected image of the other. So you're actually relating to yourself.
Yep.
And this idea about who Vince is, and then talk to Vince, and actually you're just talking to your image.
We create the world. But it's kind of holding it a bit more loosely, I think, what Vince is referring to, aren't you?
Yeah, very definitely. That's a good way to put it. Holding it loosely. Well, that's another good indication. If we're not holding anything loosely, if we're holding on tight, that we've got a contraction, even if it's a metaphorical hand contraction, because we're holding on. But that holding on is telling us something clearly. It's telling us that we're taking something personal. We've activated a belief about a self. Whether we believe that we've actually got a self or not is irrelevant. We've activated a belief, may well be just habitual. It may well just be the nervous system. So that's why a lot of people who wake up and start getting those twitches think that they're not woken up and consequently revert to a different dream. Yeah. And I've heard figures that I mean, there obviously any figure is ridiculous about how long it takes to integrate one from that first initial seeing that there is no self to actually behaving fairly consistently as if there is no self. That can take a long time. That can take years. Or minutes. I don't know. Who knows?
Sometimes.
Could be. But I see frequently those twitches. I see frequently old habits seeming to, we just describe it as just another story, seeming to try and reassert them, the old habits trying to reassert themselves. That's just a way of describing it, but it's just the nervous system reacting as if, simply because it hasn't been exposed and dissolved, which is also another story about it. But yeah. How's these last couple of days been for you, Jed?
Yeah. Yeah, quite a bit of kind of nervous system activation. I could say. I notice that as I'm sitting here waiting for you to ask me, feeling some fear. And wondering what that is, and I've got a few stories. But I've been
Do you
feeling
feel
quite,
that every
yeah.
time? Do you feel it every time you come here? Do you feel like
No,
he's going to ask me and I feel a bit apprehensive?
no, no.
But just tonight, you did.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not uncommon. I think it's I mean, should I give you my story about what it's about? And that's useful.
There you go.
Um, well, I mean, when I pay attention to it with some kind of inquiry, it feels like a bit of defensiveness, or I can feel like a bit of an upwelling of. I could imagine some tears coming with it. Maybe I'll just stay with that. That's what that's what it feels like.
Mm.
I think it's the story that keeps coming is some fears of fears of being exposed, that I've not understood anything, and then this kind of illusion of that my things are kind of okay will be shattered.
Mm.
And then some fantasy of disillusionment and stuff like that,
Mm.
which is maybe not a bad thing, disillusionment, but something with it, like feeling of failure, or disappointment.
Well, try this one. Is it to be? I'm just asking you. Is it that there's a fear that something you found might get lost again?
Um, the way I would say it is that I haven't actually found anything. That's the fear.
Oh, okay. That you've been fooling yourself that you.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. 'Cause it's just, I don't know. It seems so ephemeral, isn't it? Like you say, there is nothing changes in a way.
Mm,
Very definite,
mm.
and things are always shifting around. And
So, what about the concept that what's happened hasn't been that you've learned something, that you've added knowledge or information, that you've acquired something, but rather what's happened is that you've removed something that existed, which were beliefs about something. So it's been a subtractive process that you've gone through rather than an additive process, in which case there's nothing to lose. You've not gained anything, so you can't lose it.
well, as I say, I don't especially feel like I've gained anything that I'm afraid of losing. But that there's nothing has really changed, and so the idea that I've acquired some new beliefs and better stories. Um, I guess that's how it seems that I've acquired some better stories.
Well, that's true, isn't
Um,
it? You're just in a better dream now than what you used to be in. But it's still a dream, eh?
I mean, whether it's, I can't say that I the response doesn't come like automatically, like yeah, of course it's a dream, yeah. I have to go, oh wait a minute, what does he mean by it's a dream? Okay, yeah, I think that makes sense.
Mm. So if you think of a nighttime dream, a sleeping dream that you have, and if you can kind of project yourself into one of those dreams, remember what it was like when you were having it, it felt absolutely real, didn't it? There's no
Yes.
question it felt spot on, actual and real while it was happening. It was only when you woke up that you went, ah, that was just a dream. But while it was happening, it was it was as real as what's happening to you right now.
I think it can be. I think there's a spectrum with dreams in my experience that but yes, there are dreams that are completely, yeah, I don't doubt that I
No,
don't
it's
have any
happening.
inkling
Yeah.
that it's a dream. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
This fear, Jed, um, it's very common. I find that in these awakening spaces, there is a lot of performance. There is, and you don't do it like it seems like it doesn't. It's not intentional performance, but it is kind of what I heard you say. Like I don't want to be exposed. I don't want to seem
Yeah.
less awakened. Do you see that fear, that that thing that doesn't want to be exposed, that is the self, that is the extra? not
do
what
see
you
it.
actually lost.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my ego. It's my sense. It's something I'm projecting that I'm scared is going to get seen through or undermined. Yeah. I mean, it's not the whole of my consciousness, but that's quite, it's an active layer or something.
I think it's very common. And when you see that for what it is, you kind of can be aware of that sneaking on into the space when you're speaking or you're not speaking, perhaps. Just to see it. And when you see it, you don't have to conform to it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's kind of what I'm doing by naming it and
Yeah.
I found it interesting that you were saying nothing's happened, nothing's changed, but I don't want to lose something. Is there a contradiction there?
It's like, well, I think it's something like I don't want to lose the self that it almost feels like it's a self that believes it's, you know,
Yeah,
changed in some way, and
exactly.
I'm a bit attached to that self or something.
Mm.
I think there's something about direct experiencing that I don't know, I'm kind of curious about that. I think I've got some idea that this is not fully formed, so it might not make sense, but some idea that I when I think I can do direct experiencing, or remembering to do it comes up, and then I'll do that. I think I'm doing it, and I've got some idea that that should be kind of revelatory, or kind of different to
Mm.
ordinary consciousness where I'm not doing that. And that's kind of what awakening is supposed to be. It's me doing direct experiencing. Either that, or I've got some idea that doing direct experiencing is going to reveal some big insight into the nature of something. So I kind of keep doing that, and nothing nothing happens, and nothing seems different. And then I kind of go back to, okay, well, maybe it's about understanding, um, kind of learning different stories that are more accurate and make more sense and make life feel better.
Well, what if I said what it's about is what happens there before all of that stuff goes on?
the kind of between thoughts
Well,
space.
it's kind of not possible to describe, but it's easy to say without all of that stuff, without all of that mental chaos that goes on about whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing, or what I should do or what I shouldn't do, or what this is about, and am I going to get there or am I not going to get, before any of that stuff, and before all of the, you know, can you appreciate right now that you're sitting there having a drink, and what a fucking amazing thing it was that you had the dexterity and the ability to take the lid off that thing so that you could have a drink, that you could pick it up, and you knew you didn't even have to think about where your mouth was. You just did it, didn't you? You just knew where it was to put it to your mouth. You know, it just happened. What an amazing thing that was, you know? And you didn't think about it. There was no thinking at all about it. But just recognizing that that happened, and that was just brilliant, amazing, awesome that you could do that. You had that ability to do that. That's what it's about.
Yeah, I have a bit of a different take on it. So for me, the value of direct experience, or doing direct experience, as you put it, is to become so intimate with between the difference of the dream, or what the dream is made of, see it clearly for what it is and not. And so when that clarity is there, in that clarity, there is also a severance of a lot of beliefs that belong in the dream. So you don't take them personal anymore. You still play within the dream, but it doesn't feel personal. So it's, seeing seeing clearly what the dream stuff is, matrix, what it's made of.
And
And
that's the value of direct experience. And that's all it is. Once you've had a single direct experience that you recognize to be a direct experience, that's all you need of that. That shows you what is not direct experience, that is concept, that is essentially what the dream is made of. Concept, stories that you relate to, ideals that you believe in. That's the only reason to discover what direct experience is. You will have a lot more direct experiences after at some point, but the purpose of it in the beginning is just for you to be able to recognize what is not direct experience.
I being
Sorry?
I being in the stories, you mean, and is that
Yeah. Everything that you think is about something that you mistake for being the thing. You know, the map is not the territory. And in the dream, the consensual reality is that the map is the territory.
I
And
wonder
direct
if I am
experience
having
is the
direct
territory,
experiences.
and map is about the territory.
Yeah.
Now, what do you do when you recognize that everything but direct experience is conceptual, that you're relating to an image that you've produced? What do you do about that? Nothing. You just recognize it. And it will do whatever it does, which is most likely it will feel a bit different.
Do you recognize, Vince, that when you say, what do you do about that? Do nothing, then the conditioning or the belief is do nothing. That's what you will do. So you kind of, hmm, whatever happens, it's what you will do. It's not
Mm,
nothing
mm.
you will do.
Yeah, yeah, it's badly put. What I should say is something along the lines of no effort required.
Hmm.
I mean, even the sentence "do nothing," the two words sentence is an inbuilt contradiction, isn't it? How can you do nothing? It's like, well, yeah. Anyway, it's crazy.
Well, you end up doing nothing.
Mm,
but it's not a doing.
mm,
No, but I mean, like, you end up believing that you should actively do nothing,
mm.
which isn't what I think you want to say.
No, no, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
So when I say get familiar with the dream and the matrix or whatever you want to call it, the seams and the dream stuff, it's like notice how meaning is overlaid to every moment, a context is overlaid to every moment of your experience that is revolved around a center which you take to be you. So things, random things happening, you interpret in the context of a me rather than random things happening. For instance, you have an appointment to make and the train is late. The train is just late, but a lot of the dream stuff comes after when, oh, I'm going to be late and this and that going to happen. And you have this nervous system reaction to that and you perpetuate it by all of that is dream stuff. What actually happened is even even the train coming late is actually an interpretation, you know, implies time and all of that, but let's not get into that. But you see all of that extra stuff, become familiar with that and bring it back to what is actually happening, which is nothing. Nothing is happening.
What do you mean by that? That nothing is happening? I mean,
Well, you can't. So it's a paradox, right? Because yeah, you can say that things move and all of that, but whatever you could say about what was happening is a construct.
okay.
It's part of the dream. Whatever meaning you would put on it is whatever meaning you create and put on it.
So it could be like saying what's happening is a mystery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you want.
So you can say what is happening is what is happening. And the moment you open your mouth to say anything about it, even to just describe it, you've moved away from it. You've started to relate to something you've created.
And in the context of you, most likely.
Mm.
So that is the self.
This interpretation of everything through
Yeah.
this idea of myself and how everybody relates to me or something.
Mm. But there's a really interesting, poignant moment, poignant something, I don't know why I say that word, that there is this, and then there is about this. But about this changes this.
It certainly changes how I experience this.
It makes it into a different this to relate to. That's right. Yeah.
It's funny how I remember I had this phase where the context or perspective or whatever you want to call it changed here, where nothing, it was seen that nothing exists outside of what I'm aware of, and that the awareness, like it, I wasn't only this, I was everything in awareness. The whole thing was a creation of this. I can't even say me because it would imply a me, but the creation, the movement of everything was this experience, not only from here, but the whole awareness. And I just point that out. Like if you can feel into that, feel how that just changes the whole experience. I remember it's still a context. So I'm not saying that that is how it should be. That was a phase, but it's still a it felt so I want to say safe almost because it was all me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And it's funny how we can just create different experiences based on a change of perspective.
Mm.
Now for me it's almost um not all the time, but a lot of the time it's almost like void of perspective or frame in a sense. It's not really correct, but it's not that, for example, contrast to what I just said, that everything, that's still an interpretation, so to speak. But now it doesn't need any interpretation, if you can feel into that.
You're kind of okay with it, whatever it is. It doesn't need to be safe
Or it's not a matter of okay or not okay or need to be this or that. It's just seeing that any interpretation is an interpretation. And I guess that has had some effect on here, that there is no interpretation needed. It's not to say it never happens, but it happens a lot less. At least. Yeah, it's difficult to, it's really difficult to put in words, but it's, before it's like, it felt like there was always a context, always a story, always an interpretation of what was going on in what I was doing. Rather now it's just like happenings, movement. I really need to pee, so I have to go, guys.
Okay, thanks, Marius.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Actually, that might be a good segue to wind up. It's almost
Cool.
midnight here. Yeah,
All right, Vince. Thanks again, man.
no worries. Yeah, hang in there, mate. You're doing well.
Cheers, buddy. See you next time.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you.